so much
Hi, how
for
are
having
you?
me. I'm doing well, thanks.
Wonderful. I missed you at the top. I think it was just still coming back in. So I think we have you now. It's good to see you. How are you? How's the state of the
All
race?
right. The state of the race is really good. Here in about a week, we have, if you just want to talk about polling alone, we're doing very well. We started out with 9 points down in February. Then we worked so hard, it came down to 5 points down in August. And about 3 weeks ago, went to 1 point down. And I'll say to you now, I've seen some more recent polling, it's even better, all right? So we feel really, really good about it. And that's just because our message is resonating. You know, Mississippi is last still. I mean, I'm 66 years old. It was last when I was born. And relatively speaking, we're still last in healthcare, last in education, last in job opportunities, last in income, last. And people just tired of it. They're just tired of it. And here in Mississippi, we've got more Black voters per capita than any state in the nation.
Yeah.
So we start with a really good basis of support because I'm going to get 99% of that vote. It just matters how much of it comes out. Then on white vote, Mississippi is a 60-40 white-black state. And 19 months ago when we ran, we got 47% of the vote, even though we only had 6 months to run. So I knew we could do better if we had more time. So now we are doing better. We're going to get the Black vote out. And I got 18% of the white vote 19 months ago. We only have to get 4 more percent, 22, we believe, to win, even in a presidential cycle. So I think we're doing very, very well. You know, in Mississippi, things are changing. The Confederate flag has come down. And I'm going to show your viewers, you know, we've got this flag, you know, it replaces the Confederate flag with that Confederate emblem. And this is, I think, a harbinger of things to come. People wanted a state with a better image, a state that's more inclusive, more welcoming. They're just tired of all this bad image we have. And I believe that because of that, they're going to send the best image makeover that Mississippi's ever seen. That's an African-American man to the U.S. Senate, and that would be me.
Wow. So the question I have for you is one of the people that I believe I just almost have a spiritual connection to is Fannie Lou Hamer,
Yep.
Who of course hails from your great state. If there's something that you can tell this audience about the importance of not only building on her legacy to fight for the right to vote, but I believe that, you know, she didn't just fight for us to have that access, Mike, she fought for us to ensure that we finally leaned into and embraced our political power. What
Yep.
does it look like to you to embrace our political power in this year of our Lord 2020?
Well, like you, I have a special connection to Fannie Lou Hamer. Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. She knew, you know, she knew in 1964 she couldn't win, but it's just because African Americans were reticent to register to vote. She had to be that lodestar, you know, that guiding light to give them courage to register to vote. And she was beaten for it. She was fired from her job from the plantation, and she still ran for Congress. And guess who followed her as one who won in 1986? That would be Mike Espy. So I was the first Black congressman ever elected for Mississippi Reconstruction. You know, you worked with the Black Caucus. You know that we were there. And so, I mean, I'm standing on Fannie Lou's shoulders. Had she not tried 64, I could have never won in 86. So it's my job, as it was her job to build, it's my job to build, to expand it. So whatever we can do here in this election, we're building the runway so that our collective planes can take off. And we're building the bridge so that I can cross and so that others behind me can cross. And that's our responsibility. I mean, she fought, bled, and died like John Lewis for the right to vote. And I just tell everybody, you don't take it for granted. It's coming here, and it's nothing to play with in a pandemic. So we're running in her spirit, but also in the spirit of Medgar Evers and Vernon Damer, who was firebombed in Hattiesburg, Mississippi for registering to vote. So all of those guide me, and I hope to be an inspiration to others as I believe will win.
Yes, and you already have been such an inspiration, as you talked about, Mike. You were elected to Congress in '86. When you're out campaigning now, and I know that circumstances are so difficult because, of course, you're not only just campaigning in Mississippi, you're also doing so in the midst of COVID. Talk about some of the biggest issues you're hearing about from folks in Mississippi. What do they say they want to see in the United States Senate?
Yeah, well, I mean, Mississippi is a small state, 3 million people, and yet we have 3,200 already having died because of COVID-19. And because of the health disparities, you know that most of them are African-American, 65, almost 70% of them are Black. And we have about 112,000 infections here. So here in Mississippi, we have conservative leadership. You know, they didn't want to shut down. It shut down, but then they reopened very, very early, and it was almost no result at all, to be honest with you. And you know, I tell everybody, look, I'm not a doctor, but I know how to be a doctor. And the doctor I'm talking about is Dr. Fauci. So whatever he says, I'm going to do it. Whatever he says, wear a mask, socially distance, I'm going to do it. And until we get a vaccine, we all have to do this. So I just counsel everyone that in Mississippi now, masks used to be mandatory for like this fast, and then they rescinded it. Now it's voluntary. So I'm volunteering to take a mask. And so I'm telling everybody, when I get to the Senate, I heard even yesterday that Mitch McConnell told the White House that he's not going to do a third CARES bill. Well, that's crazy because we still have people unemployed. We still have rural hospitals that are closing. We still have people that can't pay their medical bills. So I'm the guy for Medicaid expansion. I'm the guy for bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. I'm the guy to keep these rural hospitals open. I'm the guy to make sure we get the $600 a week back in unemployment. And I need to get there first. And so what everybody tells me is that they want some relief. I'm running against a person who was voted by Vanderbilt University as the most ineffective in the United States. The most ineffective, the worst one there. Right. And I don't know if you've seen her commercials, but she's the one with that rubber hat on. That period. Well, that's who's she's wrong. I want to be the guy to move us.
Is this okay? There, I have you now. I'm sorry, it was breaking up. It's a little grainy, but you were saying that she's the one in the commercial with the hat.
Yeah. In 2014, she was a senator, but she was a statewide official. So she went to the Jefferson Davis Museum in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And you know, Jefferson Davis was the father of the Confederacy. So she went in and she tried on the little rubber hat and she tried on the rebel uniform and she tried on the rifle. And that's fine. Look, if you want to do that, it was a museum and I guess they have artifacts. If you have a penchant for that, then do it. But she didn't have to say it was the best of Mississippi's history now. When a time when the human beings could own another human being legally, that's not the best time in Mississippi's history. So
that's right.
It's just what she is. I mean, she talked about public hangings and voter suppression. She said, maybe we ought to make it, maybe we just ought to make it more difficult for those at the other universities to vote.
Yeah.
So I just tell her, what other universities are those?
And you have a personal connection to those other universities as a Howard graduate, right?
I
so
do.
Those are the universities she's talking about.
Yeah, and in Mississippi it would be Jackson State, Alcorn, Tougaloo, and all of that. So I keep asking her, name them. Who are they? Put them, let them come out of your mouth. And of course she won't, because she can't. Yeah. So that's who I'm running against. I mean, she's holding our state back. She's costing us jobs. She's costing us income. She's costing us reputational opportunities. She's awful. She's got an awful record, and she's got to go. And I hope hope we'll be able to displace her in a few weeks, in
So
2 weeks. Yeah.
yes, and you ran for Senate as well in 2018, United States Senate.
Yeah.
Gained 47% of the vote. What did you learn in that last election that you're applying every day in this one?
I learned that I needed more time, because that race, that particular race for me, it was a race in the United States on the Senate block. The incumbent fell sick and he resigned in March, okay? And the election was in November. So I'd not run for office in 25 years. And I got gray hair and all that.
Yeah.
And folks had forgotten me. So I couldn't get my story out. I had to go 6 months to announce for office, to find a staff, to build a staff, to raise the money, to get the message out, to go all over in 6 months. We still got 47% of the vote. So what I learned was that we needed more time. We need to build a more professional staff, and we need to build the most robust, highest, deepest, widest coalition in Mississippi history, and we have done that. We're knocking on doors now all over this state. I mean, I never knew folks were receiving door knocking in a pandemic, but we've got gloves and PPE and masks and digital devices, and so we're getting a lot of good response. So I learned that we needed more time to raise more money, and we've done both.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is important is, you make this distinction between you and the current senator about who represents the old Mississippi versus the new. You also represent a form of older Mississippi too, in that you're not new to this rodeo. You've been around for a long time in our political processes, but you're talking about a different kind of old. You already referenced her support of the Confederacy and kind of the oppressive way of thinking. What are some of the other ways that you would represent the new Mississippi and what should be true for Mississippi?
Well, I participated in the Black Lives Matter movement here in July, and I'm really proud of that because they wouldn't let anybody my age lead it, right? These were led by millennials and Gen Zs, and I really, really loved it. There was such energy and passion, after the death of George Floyd, and they gathered and they protested peacefully. But the thing is that in that march, they did it themselves. And so my point is I'm trying to make is I'm older, but I wanted them to relate to me. And so I had to tell the story about when I was their age and I integrated an all white public high school. I've got a twin sister. And so the two of us and maybe 12 others in a student body of 800. And every day I'm the N-word, and every day someone's trying to fight me. Every day I had a teacher in chemistry class, that sprayed me with a fire extinguisher, the teacher. And then the next year when the schools merged, they elected me the black senior class president. Everything was dual, black, white, black water fountains, white water fountains, black this, black that. So I was the black senior class president. And so because when the students came over, the black teachers none of them were offered a contract. So I led a walkout of the black students for 3 days, very successful. The school offered the teachers contracts, but I got called into the superintendent's office, and they told me that since you led the march, you're the one that suffered the penalty. So I'm a senior, and they docked my GPA 6 points.
Wow.
Just as I'm trying to go to college. So I'm trying to go to college. I had to write essays about why my GPA was so low. I'm saying, well, I'm from Mississippi, and discrimination, and so they know. But so I had to tell the Black Lives Matter generation what we had to endure. Now, I'm not saying I'm John Lewis, but I am saying I went through Jim Crow, so I know what Jim Crow's all about, and systemic racism tattooed on my back as well. So now they know that, and now they can identify with me, and they're flocking into this campaign. So I think we're building what we didn't have 19 months ago. We're building because now they know who I am. They know my story. You don't have to explain to me about Mississippi racism. You don't have to explain to me about a Confederate flag. I was against that flag 20 years ago. So that's why We're doing so well. They've got passion and energy, and now they're coming to the Mike Espy side, and I believe that's why we're going to win.
You mentioned Jim Crow, Mike, and I think it's important that in the midst of Jim Crow, you weren't the only one in your family who took it head on and just addressed what needed to be addressed. You also had a grandfather that started the first Black-owned hospital in Mississippi right in the midst of Jim Crow. Talk about what it was like learning from him and knowing that he was able to do something as impressive as opening a medical facility, which we know is so desperately needed now and then.
Yeah, well, look, you've done your research. That's very, very clear. Thank you for doing
I have
all
a
this.
team.
So his name,
I have a team.
well, thanks to your team. They've done a good job. So he died when I was 6, but he was my mom's father, Thomas Jefferson Hudson Sr. His parents were slaves. They brought him over to Mississippi from the states of Georgia and Virginia. And he was born in the Delta, where I ended up representing in the Congress. And he came of age after Reconstruction, after all the federal troops went back to Washington, after Abraham Lincoln had long since died, and in the rise of the Klan and the rise of Jim Crow. He was 20 years old in that era. And he pretty much said, hey guys, we're in it for ourselves. We have to depend on one another. So the first thing he did is he started an organization called Afro-American Sons and Daughters. Now think of that. In 1910, Afro-American sons and daughters and folks getting lynched, you know? So he was a man of courage, and the Afro-American Sons and Daughters started really a workman's comp insurance company. So for 50 cents a month, when you went to work and got hurt, you could have some way to pay your bills, you know? And then he started a newspaper called the Century Voice. And by saying Century Voice, he's trying to project a better plight for Black Mississippians in the next 100 years. Mm-hmm. So I read all of his essays, and you know, he couldn't say register to vote, he'd be killed. But he said, men, stay with your families, go to church, finish high school, go to the military. You know, in World War II, he said buy war bonds. And then he built, and then when Black farmers they were sharecroppers and they got a bad deal from the white plantation owner, he loaned money to the sharecroppers at a lower rate of interest than the white plantation owner. So he was a banker. I found out that, I said, well, how's that this man lived? And I found out that he was also a bootlegger for white policemen. So for protection, right? For protection, he gave them free liquor out of the back of his house because they had to. So, and then he said, I'm tired of our women having babies in the cotton field. Let's build us a hospital. So he got all of them to give $1. In 1924, he built a hospital, 35 beds. But then it connected with Harry, Howard, all of the medical schools, HBCUs, and they would all fulfill their residence requirements in the hospital. So he was a magnificent man. And I was born in my grandfather's hospital, right? So who can say that? Wow. There's another thing that he did. He had some relative wealth. You know, for that time, he was relatively wealthy. He was also a woman's rights advocate. All the Black folks began to go to Detroit, Chicago, and Milwaukee. You know, in the Great Migration, he had 4 daughters, and he gave them all an option to leave. So my mom was the only one who stayed. His other 3 daughters left, and he gave them money for a brownstone. And all 3 of them went to Chicago, and he told them, okay, babies, I'm gonna give you enough money to buy your own brownstone, 4 stories. You can live in the basement, and you can rent out the upper tier, and you'll never have to depend on any man. He did that. So, I mean, he was quite a guy, and he's sort of like my idol as far as that's concerned.
That is incredible. Like, I hope there's a whole documentary or a docuseries for this. This is so good. And it's so interesting because you talked about, Say that
No, go
again.
ahead, finish.
Well, I was
No,
going to
no,
say
I'm just
that.
interjecting. I'm saying I hope that there will be one day.
Oh yeah, it has to be. And it's fascinating too, because here you are, like your commitment to healthcare policy intersects with the hospital. And then even this idea of sharecropping connects to your history as the Secretary of Agriculture. Like there are all of
Yes,
these overlays, and that has to
yes.
feel somewhat fulfilling to the family's overall legacy. Talk about what legacy you hope to leave when you go to the United States Senate, or what you plan on delving into first. What's the first bill you want to introduce? What's the policy that you're like, this is how I know I'm going to be working on behalf of all of Mississippi when I get there?
All right, thank you. So that's a great question. When I get to the U.S. Senate, I'll say it this way: Mississippi is a small state, and we believe in seniority. So the senators we send there, they tend to stay a long time. You've heard of Senator Gilland, even though he was sort of a racist, he was known for picking judges. Senator Stennis was known as being a chairman of the Appropriations Committee and Armed Services, so he built the modern Navy. Senator Cochran, the gentleman who died, was over agriculture. I've already done that. So I want to leave my legacy in the health. I want to be the healthcare senator. So the first thing I want to do is make sure we can bring Medicaid expansion to Mississippi, because 90% of it is paid for by the federal government. So we got all these poor people with all these illnesses, hypertension and diabetes and heart disease and asthma and all of that. They won't go to the doctor because they know that if they go, they're going to get a whopping bill that they cannot pay. Mm-hmm. So then they won't go, and then all these maladies just exacerbate, and they just get worse. And then when they go, there's a greater outlay to the state of Mississippi that it can't pay. And then the rural hospitals have bills that it can't pay. So I want to remedy all of that and get Medicaid expansion. 90% of that will go to pay these bills, and it's going to cover 500,000 Mississippians the next day. So I want that to be my legacy. Medicaid expansion, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, keeping the rural hospitals open, giving people more confidence to go to the doctor because they can pay that bill. That is what I want to do day one.
Someone asked in here, and I think it's such a good one, especially when you think of, again, the connection you have to agriculture, the Pickford settlement. What do you think needs to happen next to ensure that Black farmers don't continue to become an endangered species, right? Like, we know that everything has been done to try to take out Black farmers. What do we do to reinstill the power that they deserve and the economic support base that we know that we need to ensure our farmers are good?
Thank you. Well, I was involved with the Pickford lawsuit, and it was kind of unusual. I got really, really criticized for that because people were saying you were the cabinet secretary over USDA, which is the agency that you sued. And I said, well, who better than me, because I know where the bones are buried. I know exactly. I know what they did wrong. I know. So we settled that lawsuit. We didn't have the first deposition, not the first trial day, because the Justice Department and USDA, they already knew they had done wrong. So they were just like Roberto Duran, when he said no mas. So we got $1.2 billion from that. And every Black farmer who was eligible got $50,000 on the same day. It was the largest civil rights settlement in America's history, plus enough money to pay the taxes on the $50,000. So what has to happen now to remedy the ills of Pickford is to make sure that USDA can really become the lender of last resort. I mean, if you are a qualified farmer, then you ought to get a loan from USDA. So what ought to happen now is treating them with respect, not calling them the N-word, not throwing away their loan application, making sure that you can follow them and make sure they get good credit. Just treat them like human beings, like you would treat everyone else, and then make sure the resources are there for them and the technical training so they can make these farms go. So that's it. Just treat them fairly, treat them like consumers that they are, treat them like citizens that they are, make sure that when they pay these loans back, then they qualify for another one.
And Secretary Espy, another thing that I think is important to note is you would be going into the United States Senate as a Democrat, caucusing with the Democrats. Some of us probably wish you were there right now, given this confirmation process of Donald Trump's latest Supreme Court justice. Talk to us about, given the fact that you would caucus with the Democrats, where are they falling short on the fight to prevent this woman from being named to the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett? What do you think they should be doing today, since Lindsey Graham railroaded over the Democrats who did not attend today's vote? He railroaded over them. I said that they should sue them. What do you think should happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, there was a rule in the Judiciary Committee, like a rule that was invalid until today, where there would be at least 2 Democrats on the committee when they would pass a vote to pass out that nominee to the board. And Lindsey Graham just went over that. I mean, he ignored it like it was nothing. And so the Democrats all boycotted. So, I mean, once they would sue, I mean, honestly, they could do that. But when would that, I mean, it would be appealed to the Supreme Court, and she'll be on the court, right? So that's
not if we buy time
would be overturned. So
we might be able to buy some time.
How would you buy time?
Because I don't think that they would rule that quickly.
All right. Well, let me think about that. I think that might.
Well, here's my
let me
main
think about
point.
that.
My main point is, if you are working on behalf and advocating on behalf of your constituents, and you being in the Senate, that would make you one of 4 Black people in the Senate. Part of your constituency is Black America. And frankly, people who are just well-intentioned and don't want to undo how we used to operate, which was we didn't confirm Supreme Court justices this close to the election. Part of what I've heard all day is people want someone in there fighting. So what does your fight look like? Beyond the Supreme Court nomination process, how else would you be fighting for all of America in the Senate?
You mean with regard to Amy Barrett?
You can use that or any other example, because right now people are just like, they're not fighting for us. What's the point of us going out to risk our lives to vote for people who are just letting this happen? Like, they're not seeing any real fight.
Well, I mean, honestly, the fight comes November 3rd because it comes November 3rd. Once you get Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris, and we can flip the Senate, then the fight is over. The fight is over.
Yeah.
The fight, the power now goes, the leverage goes to the Democratic side. There's a lot of talk about immediately expanding the court from 9 to 11, right? And then you may have 2 justices that'll be progressive there. So there's a lot of talk about that. So, you know, there's a lot of things we can do, but we just got to get the levers of power. I'm going to tell you something. I was on a Zoom call the other day. I remember something that made me really happy to be a Democrat, and that is in 1987. I was on the floor of the House of Representatives, and there was a vote. In the, they always take 15-minute votes. So the voting clock was about to expire, and Jim Wright was the speaker, and he knew that the vote was about to expire, but the Democrats didn't have the votes. So even though it went to 15 and he should have shut down the clock, he casually turned and began to talk to the parliamentarian, like ignoring the Republicans who were about to go apoplectic, you know, the clock, you know. Mm-hmm. And Trent Lott from Mississippi was banging on the desk because they had won the vote, but Jim Wright never acknowledged it. So I saw him do something I have never seen before or done or since. What Wright did is that he suspended the rules. He had someone else make a motion to turn the clock back 30 minutes. He turned daylight back 30 minutes. to give him enough time to find recalcitrant voters. And he brought some people by their ear from the cloakroom. They switched their votes and the Democrats won that vote. I said, look at that. That is power. He turned back the 24-hour clock 30 minutes by an act of Congress.
Wow.
I saw him do it. So that's power. And so whatever we can do that with that in the Senate, but he could do it at the majority. So we got to get the majority back, and we can do just about anything.
Yeah, well, I definitely hear you. We had a little bit of a chop in the connection, but I hear you on getting the majority back. You just have to make sure that the majority remembers the people who helped them get there. And that's what's most important. This, sometimes people feel a little unheard and not seen. And so I know with you there, Secretary Espy, it'll be that much better. So hopefully we'll hear some great results from you on election night. I'm so grateful you can make this time. I'm so grateful for the lessons learned for you in 2018. And please let our followers know how they can support you now and leading up to November 3rd.
Well, thank you so much for this time. Thanks to all of your listeners and viewers. I really appreciate that. So we've got another few days to go. The Mike Espy movement is countrywide. So you can go to espyforsenate.com. You can volunteer. You can volunteer to old school or new school. You can peer-to-peer text, and that's been done all over the country, all 50 states and territories here in the Mississippi. You can call. We have Ava DuVernay from LA. We talked a little while ago, and she's signed up for 2 call sessions from Los Angeles here. And you do old school. A lot of people are writing postcards that you can do that if you, and you can just volunteer. All you can city, which is what we need as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go to
Thank you so very much for Act Blue. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So you all heard it here first. This is Secretary Espy running for the United States. Of course, right when I get ready to end, I get a call. But I was saying this is Secretary Espy running for the United States Senate in Mississippi. Please show him your support. Please continue to learn about his candidacy, his incredible family. He's standing on the shoulders of some greats. And now we will also help to champion him and stand on his shoulders as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.